Happy Sunday night to you from Colorado Springs. Glad you're tuning in as I do another reading from Red Hot, my novel series. That's 3 books, and hopefully we'll have a 4th book to finish up the series. Tonight I'm gonna do a kind of a retro reading, and I'm going back to book 1, reading part of the first chapter in book 1, which came out a couple of years ago, and it was Red Hot New Life in Fleming. So that was the first book. Just before I get into it, I just want to encourage you to go on Amazon, order any one of the 3 books or all 3, as well as, maybe leaving me a review, leave a review for one or all of the books. Really appreciate that. That helps me promote them as much as I can. If you do that, I appreciate it. Also, you could go on Instagram and put words from WW, follow me on Instagram, or be one of my followers, whatever you call those Instagram people. If you're watching tonight from Words from WW, I guess you already know about that. You can be a follower of that as well. I've been teaching middle school 7th grade language arts the last 2 weeks, which means that I get a lot of material for future writings about middle schoolers, especially 7th graders. And the first book that came out a couple of years ago, one of the 2 main characters, is a kid named Ethan Thomas. He's a 7th grader who really has, he's got no friends. He's got thick eyeglasses, a buzzed head, and freckles. And as I teach middle school, I see there's a lot of Ethan Thomases roaming the hallways, and just hoping that somebody will notice them. And really the background of the story, New Life in Fleming, is the other main character who moves in across the street from Ethan, who has bright red hair, and his name is Randy Bowman, and he becomes Red Hot Bowman because of his hair, but also he's got an excellent shot in basketball. And Randy sees the potential in Ethan Thomas when nobody else does, befriends him, and really keeps telling Ethan that he's a great kid, and he has talent and gifts, and he believes in him. So that's kind of the background of it. The first part of the first chapter, we discover Ethan Thomas, and I gotta admit, it's kind of a downer of the first chapter, because we see an Ethan Thomas that no one believes in, and he has an encounter with the 2 school bullies, and so it's set in the year 1992. And it's set in a small town in West Virginia called Fleming, West Virginia. It's not a real town. Well, I mean, it is a real town, but I just kind of gave a name to it. There's other towns in the book that are real towns, like Williamstown, where I lived for about 4 years in my growing up days, and in fact 3rd grade through 7th grade, and also Parkersburg, Huntington, Ripley, Ravenswood, St. Mary's, a lot of those small towns, as well as larger towns in West Virginia, become part of the story. So I'm going to read a few pages starting at the beginning, and here's how it begins. Ethan Thomas tried to blend in with the lockers that lined the Fleming Middle School hallway. Perhaps Timmy Little and Johnny Davis, who were standing in the middle of the corridor, wouldn't notice him as he attempted to make his way to language arts class. As he backed down the hallway, his fingers slid across the fronts of the lockers until he felt a dent. Locker number 521. He remembered the number because of how the dent had been created. It was the damage left behind from Joey Carter's head being rammed into it several weeks earlier by the same two boys Ethan now tried to evade. Timmy and Johnny said it was an accident. But to the silent applause of the rest of the 6th grade class, the two tormentors each received 3-day suspensions. Ethan could still hear the rattling sound of that collision, almost like a locker being closed, but punctuated with a cry of agony. His fingers tried to jump past the dent and the memory. He thought he had made it past, but felt the grasp of a hand on the back of his t-shirt. You trying to get by us without saying hello, Thomas? I've got to get to language arts class, Timmy. You don't got to do anything, loser, except die and pay taxes. Johnny looked at Timmy, confused. We supposed to pay taxes, Timmy? I ain't ever paid taxes. No, Johnny, it's just an expression, like it's raining cats and dogs. You've heard of that one, haven't you? The grasp of Ethan's shirt released as Timmy tried to explain things to Johnny. Oh, sure, I never understood it, but I heard it. That's just what they say about things you got to do, Johnny, and you don't start paying taxes until you're like 40. Oh, Johnny replied, still clueless. Ethan thought they had lost interest in him. He took one sideways step down the hallway. Number 520, number 519, 518. Hold it, Thomas, Timmy said, raising his voice and coming close. He smiled, showing his yellow teeth and the gaping hole right in the middle of his uppers. That one had gone missing when he tripped Esther Shoemaker in the school cafeteria and then stood over her and laughed. She was wearing hard-soled Buster Brown shoes that day and used her right heel as a weapon. This being the last day of school and all, you know what that means? Ethan knew what it meant, but he wasn't saying. For one thing, it meant staying out of the restrooms. They'd be looking to corner him in there, like at the beginning of the year when they threw his eyeglasses into a toilet that hadn't been flushed. The memory of that still made him want to hurl. He could feel other students sliding by him, thankful that Timmy's focus was not on them. Timmy had a thing for Ethan. Truth be told, Ethan was the cure to Timmy's itch. Ethan felt the wall of the lockers behind him. They wouldn't move as he pressed on them. Perspiration formed on his forehead. We'll be waiting for you after school, Four Eyes. Me and Johnny can't wait to finish the last day of school by beating on you for a while. Ain't that right, Johnny? That's right, Timmy. Johnny Davis inhaled and exhaled as he laughed, resembling the sound of a donkey hee-hawing. I ain't scared of you, Timmy, said Ethan, trying to look mean and fearless, like the masked marvel from his favorite TV show, Big Time Wrestling. Looking fearless challenged his limits, his vision being just shy of legally blind. The eyeglasses slid down his nose and he pushed them back up. His fingers moved one locker closer to escape. He had to get to class. Timmy pulled him closer. His mullet haircut looked like a weed patch gone wild. The brown hair going every which direction, and then his tail resembling a snake slithering down his back. His breath smelled like the trailing odor of a garbage truck on an unbearably hot and humid summer afternoon. Ethan's nostrils rebelled. "Oh, you're scared of me, all right." Timmy looked down at Ethan's knees and smiled at the slight quivering his victim's pants couldn't hide. "You're just about to wet yourself, you're so scared." "Am not. Your knees are shaking like crazy." He spoke out of the side of his mouth to Johnny. "Johnny, can you see his knees shaking?" "Oh, not really, Timmy. He's got pants on." "Johnny, you're as dumb as a fly sticking out his tongue for the swatter." "I'm sorry, Timmy." Johnny always seemed to be apologizing for his lack of common sense. "Whatever, Johnny." Timmy's eyes went back to staring at Ethan. "Like I was saying, Thomas, there's not many other things I enjoy doing more than pounding on you. Ain't that right, Johnny?" "Sure shooting, Timmy," Johnny replied, followed by 2 straight hee-haw laughs as proof. "I've never done anything mean toward you, Timmy." Ethan felt his glasses sliding down his nose again, greased by a layer of his sweat. "Why do you always pick on me?" "Because I like to, Pop Bottle Eyes. That's the only reason I need. And guess what, blind boy? I'm going to keep terrorizing you until we graduate from stupid Fleming High School." "You could use a breath mint, Timmy," said Ethan, unable to contain his thought. You smell like cottage cheese that's been left out of the refrigerator for about a month." Timmy drew his right fist back, ready to inflict punishment for the insult. "Why, I oughta—" The voice of a rescuer interrupted the harassment. "Problem here, boys?" It was Mr. Humphrey, Ethan's science teacher. Ethan exhaled in relief. "No, Mr. Humphrey," replied Timmy, his voice suddenly changing to sound like a typical 7th grade student. "I was just telling Ethan here how much I'm going to miss seeing him during summer vacation." "I'm sure you were, Timmy," the science teacher said. "And I fell off a turnip truck yesterday." "Really?" asked Johnny, whose mental wattage qualified as dim. "Get to class, boys." Ethan pushed away from the lockers and didn't look back. Timmy and Johnny were bad news and Ethan's personal antagonizers. He had nightmares of them hanging him upside down from the Fleming water tower. He clutched his textbooks close to his side and scooted down the hallway, head down, trying to convince himself no one was staring at him. "Ethan," Mr. Humphrey called after him. Ethan halted and slowly turned. "Yes, sir?" "Tell me the truth. Do those 2 boys bother you when the opportunity presents itself?" "Most days, Mr. Humphrey." "Anything I can do to help?" "You got some kind of science experiment that can turn me into Superman?" "Afraid not." "And you probably can't help me." Ethan's chin dropped to his chest as the discouragement hit him. Mr. Humphrey was the one teacher who believed Ethan could think. His other teachers, like Mr. Jenkins, seemed to think that he was dumber than an ox and treated him as such. Or like Mrs. Evans, his language arts teacher, who believed he was pitiful and poor. Mr. Humphrey asked him questions in class and offered him encouraging words like, "Good job, Ethan." It was the only class he had a grade higher than a C in. Otherwise, his report card was usually a jumbled mess of mediocrity. Ethan had stopped believing in himself at some point back in 3rd grade. It was around the time the eye specialist had pulled his parents into a side room for a private conversation. They made Ethan wait outside in the hallway, sitting in an oversized fake leather chair that made squeaky noises like he had passed gas every time he moved. He remembered how his mom had come out of the room, walked over to where he sat, kneeled down, and hugged him tight. He hadn't understood the emotion of the embrace, and he was confused by his papa's silence as he walked past him without even a pause in his steps. That's about the time he began to think he wasn't normal, that he was dumb. His papa didn't seem to want to talk to him anymore after that. Ethan felt like he'd become invisible to him. Invisible. That's what he pretended to be, like a special superhero power. However, he knew he was discouragingly unnoticeable. Why no one seemed to be able to see Ethan was a mystery to him. His eyeglasses were the worst. It was like he was dressing up for Halloween every day. Timmy Little had even dressed up to be him last year on trick-or-treat night. Pop bottles attached to his eye sockets somehow for glasses, a t-shirt with holes in it, and red dots all over his face to mimic Ethan's heavy freckle population. That didn't seem right to him. Nobody should be able to dress up at Halloween to look like a classmate. Timmy, however, did what no one else would dare to do. He terrorized some other kids sometimes, but Ethan was his favorite. When you're noticeably unnoticed, it makes you angry that only the baddest kids seem to see you. Ethan had become invisible to the others his age, kids from the 6th grade class of Fleming Middle School. He could count the number of his friends on less than one finger. He had none. Add to that his shaved head and freckles, and it made him the boy that no one wanted to be seen with. I'm going to stop right there. And if you've been watching this, Red Hot New Life in Fleming, that's the first book in the series. And you notice it's kind of a downer beginning, but trust me, Ethan ends up being a hero. The book is a clean read. If you got kids, grandkids, friends, even enemies, it'd be something to invest. $2.99 for the Kindle version and $11.99 for the paperback. Hope you have a great week. Remember, there's probably an Ethan who's going to pass by you this week. And will you give him a word of encouragement? Good night.